Chapter 2 of Psychopomp Drive. Written by Janeen Leese-Taylor. Read aloud by SkyAsimaru. Chapter 2 Still Alive. Finley felt a firm surface materialize beneath his hands in the darkness. Warm and perfectly smooth. He hadn't expected to feel it. He hadn't expected to feel anything again. After only a moment's hesitation, he managed to pry open his eyes. He was greeted by the sight of a large, brightly lit room. All around him were walls of blank, glowing white, like the inside of a warehouse or storeroom. Stacked along each of the room's faces were the misshapen forms of disused mannequins. The dummies stared back at him with empty eyes. Finley reached for his jacket, and his eyes widened in surprise when he found that he was no longer wearing the clothes that he had dressed in that morning. These new clothes were plain and black in color. Trousers and a shirt made with simple fabrics. He tentatively drew a hand across his chest, but no buttons or stitches made themselves known to him.
"That's weird,"
he breathed, trailing his eyes across the floor and along the matching white ceiling. Overhead, a bright yellow light was swaying from left to right. Its color was too bright to look at for long, and it cast long shadows across the other humanoid shapes that served as casual onlookers. A noise from across the room drew his attention, and he felt every one of his muscles tense up like a spring-loaded trap. The quiet peal of a bell rang out in the flowing white mists beyond, the little tink-tink growing louder the closer it got to where he was kneeling. The mist grew and shifted, obscuring much of the space beyond him. They reached out in his direction with translucent hands of white, and he moved back and away from them in alarm, scrambling across the immaculate floors.
Wait, what is all this?"
His eyes grew wide as a shape materialized within the smoke, coming closer and closer to where he lay sprawled across the warm ground. From out of the nothingness came the body of a small black cat. Its fur shone like freshly woven silk in the glow of the overhead bulb. Its ears perked high on its head. Two round, glassy eyes, the color of starlight, observed him with something like curiosity. It tilted its head to one side with interest, observing him like a child might study an insect under a magnifying glass. Something between a laugh and a relieved sigh fell from Finley's lips, and he stretched out a hand slowly in the animal's direction, coaxing it with a quiet muttering of,
"Hey there, little fella. It's nice to see a friendly face."
The cat slowly lowered onto its hind legs to sit. Its long, velveteen tail trailed across the floor, scattering minuscule fibers of dust and dirt in the human's direction.
Where did you come from, anyway?"
Finley continued, raising his head to look back in the direction that the cat had entered the room. Beyond the line created by the swinging light was a dense, impenetrable fog. He could no longer hear the sound of the bell or nearby traffic. The room around them was unnaturally silent, as if the mists had blotted out all noise. Finley placed both hands on the concrete, shoving himself into a more upright position with a soft groan. His legs felt strange, almost alien, like when his feet fell asleep on a long flight. He wobbled on the spot as he stood, spreading his arms on either side of him to keep his balance. Clearing his throat, he glanced once more around the bright, unfamiliar space before he asked,
I don't suppose you know where I am, do you?
The cat yawned quietly, reaching up a paw to clean one side of its face.
I wouldn't be much of a guide if I didn't, Master Evans,
it answered. Finley froze in place, turning his head to look down at the animal before him. It was still cleaning its dark fur, the light above it making it shimmer.
That's really weird, he remarked. I could have sworn that I just heard you talk.
Bright eyes turned in his direction. They were cornflower purple and as luminous as the light hanging over them, painting the animal's face in amethyst tones.
That's because you did,
it said. Its voice was like that of a middle-aged man, well-spoken with something of an Irish twang to it. Finley reached up towards his head and brushed back his unruly bangs.
God, do I have a concussion? Is this what having a concussion feels like? I know that all of this can come as quite a shock,
the cat began. Around his neck a little silver bell pealed like the sound of birdsong at daybreak as he moved.
I need you to take a look in that mirror for me, the one behind you.
Catching movement in the corner of his eye, Finley slowly turned his face towards the shining surface on the wall opposite them, his breath catching in his throat at the unfamiliar face before him. Gone were the minuscule details that he was used to seeing there. The creases, the scars. Everything was as smooth as granite, polished to a pale glow like a disused shop mannequin. He reached up to touch his face, tracing the curves of his cheekbones with his fingertips.
Wait, no,
he breathed, crossing the room in 4 quick strides to reach the mirror.
This isn't right. This isn't my face.
Memories danced around behind his eyes, becoming clearer with each passing moment. A man dressed in black, a woman's scream, a glistening diamond ring. He planted his hands on either side of the mirror as he stared.
There was a man,
he started. His brow furrowed as he tried to think back to those final moments in the jewelry shop. He barely registered as his knees hit the ground again, hands fumbling for the wall in front of him in the dark as his legs gave out from under him. The realization encroached on him from all sides, a suffocating pressure that crept inwards like hands grasping at his clothing, tugging, squeezing.
He had a gun,
Finley carried on breathlessly, his throat trembling with every new inhale.
He came into the jeweler's with a gun, but why? Why did he have a gun?
He curled inwards, pulling his torso down towards his knees as his whole body began to shake. From somewhere far away, he could make out the hot shape of the animal, shoving against his arms as he tried to create space, the hard bone of his skull pressing against his cheek.
Breathe, Finley,
the male voice urged.
It's all right. Thorn, I have to get back to Thorn,
the young man babbled, raising his head again
to look around the room. "How long have I been gone? She's going to worry." "It's all over now."
The cat's voice grew soft, as comforting and familiar as an old friend. He pressed the sides of his furry face into Finley's bare arms with insistent force.
"Focus on my voice and breathe." "You're a cat," the human mumbled. You shouldn't even be talking right now."
"There are lots of things that shouldn't be happening right now," the cat rebuked, shaking his head. "But these things are your reality now, Finley, and I need you to calm down and listen. Can you do that?" The walls of his throat began to seal closed. He felt trapped, like the mists had a physical weight that was bearing down on him. He gasped helplessly, his eyes wandering across the white, glassy figures to all sides of him.
Am I...
He swallowed harshly.
Am I dead?
The cat's bright eyes turned away from his own for a moment.
"I'm afraid so, Master Evans."
Finley reached out his fingers for the comfort of the animal, tracing gentle lines across its back and sides, moving upwards to the crest of its tail. The cat leaned into the touch, a deep rumble surfacing from his chest.
"That's it,"
he praised.
"Breathe slow and easy. It's all right. I've got you."
The dizziness began to subside, and Finley continued his pattern in the soft fur, line after line, pulling him back into the moment, keeping him grounded.
"Am I really dead?"
he asked at last. His voice was smaller than he remembered, like that of a lost child, and it broke apart on the last word as he swallowed down the forming cracks. The cat sat upright in his lap. Despite his small stature, there was significant weight to the beast. Finley could feel him pressing down on his thighs. His toes curled inwards, kneading like a baker with his fresh dough. He thought of Thorn's cat, Poppy, then, of the little holes that she had formed in some of his favorite jeans, of the comfort he found in petting her on days when work was a little more stressful. Purple-toned eyes met his own.
"Not entirely,"
the cat answered him, casting a glance back behind him into the white, glowing realm beyond.
"Through that door is the land of the in-between, a space that lies in the middle of life and death. Some of your human stories call it purgatory. It is a place all souls must travel to whenever they reach their end."
Finley could feel his own weight sink deeper into the floor, the shape of red flowers forming in the dark corners of his mind. There had been plans, an important question to ask, a picnic in the rain.
"But I was buying an engagement ring,"
he said quietly.
"And that is one of the reasons that you are here,"
the cat noted. The light-haired man turned his head to watch his furry companion with a frown.
"What do you mean?"
The cat hopped off his lap and walked towards the room's center, turning to give him a sideways glance.
"Have you heard that old story about the cats with 9 lives?
Finley's brow furrowed thoughtfully.
It was something my mum used to say when I was little. An old wives' tale, I think."
The cat studied his face as he spoke.
"The in-between is the space where those extra lives begin and end. Each cat is born a servant to the in-between and will return to the void once he loses his final life. Until then, he may use his remaining lives in whatever way he so chooses."
The animal straightened, his curved back arching upwards in a stretch. His dark tail flicked to the left and then to the right in an almost thoughtful manner.
I chose to give my lives to those who died before their time, those that were undeserving of the hand that fate had dealt them.
The air around them began to grow still, as if it were holding its breath in expectation. The silhouettes of the mannequins became warped with the moving of their shadows. Finley's fingers were growing numb with the cold, becoming too swollen for him to bend. He felt like he had the stiffness of a corpse, rigor mortis sealing him inside his skeletal cage as the world slowly collapsed around him. The pieces of his body felt wrong somehow, like they had been arranged out of order. The mists around them began to withdraw, revealing the tall, narrow shape of a doorway in the middle of the room. The wood was painted black, the handle large and made of brass. Silver designs lined the edges with intricate detail. A pale purple light was coming from inside, shining from underneath the door's metal frame.
I have chosen you, Finley Evans, to be my 8th and final Amarini.
The spirit of the cat continued as the door began to open into the room and the realm beyond them.
Step through the door, and I promise this will not be the end of you.
The air pooled out from behind the entranceway, as thick as dry ice, wisps of it curling and moving along the floor, like a kraken whose tentacles beckoned him inside. In the midst of that swirling mass, deep within the nothingness of the in-between, Finley could have sworn that he could smell the scent of roses. To be continued in Chapter 3.